I want to ask you guys about Anthony Davis because he can sign that long-term extension we've been talking about with the Lakers. All roads, of course, lead to him staying in LA. He does have some choices. And as you heard Woj say in our last block, he's not expected to commit in the immediate days. Brian, can you explain a little bit about what's going on here to our audience, what his options are, and is there any point they should start getting nervous?
Well, there's some speculation out there, Rachel, that one of the reasons why he's going to delay his decision is because the Lakers have some other free agency moves to make, and he just wants to let them know he's watching. Now, I don't think there's any stress out there. He will be a Laker, but one of the guys they have to make a decision on, and it's a tough decision about how much to pay him, is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who is represented by the same agent, Rich Paul. Now, I think Caldwell-Pope is going to have some interest out there in the market. Whether or not he can get enough money out there to actually leave the Lakers is a different story. But this is somewhat reminiscent of when J.R. Smith was a free agent back in 2016 in Cleveland, represented by Rich Paul, and LeBron took his sweet time over that summer before signing. Now, having said that, LeBron did sign before J.R. Smith did. But while I think Anthony Davis has been well aware of his contract's options for months now, maybe it's just a little bit of a check game that he's playing.
Paul, if you were Anthony Davis, would you commit 2 years plus a player option, do the 1-and-1, where you're only committing for another year? We've seen that be a strain on teams, like when Kevin Durant kept doing the 1-and-1s and the 1-and-1s that just brought all these questions about whether he was really going to stay. Or do you want to keep your flexibility if you're Anthony Davis?
I think it's important for the players these days to keep their flexibility. I would line my contract up directly with LeBron's because, as you can see, he can sign for 35% of the cap after that 10 years. And so, you know, LeBron, he could probably retire in 2-3 years. Who knows? You know, but I'll line my situation up with his. But what Anthony Davis got to understand is you're a Laker, you won a championship. Now, if you decide after 2 years you don't want to be a Laker or 3 years you don't want to be a Laker, it's like, to me, where do you go from there? And so I really would start thinking long term. I would think even for a 5 or 6 year deal. I mean, because after you may win another championship as a Laker. There's nowhere else you can go after being a Laker after winning 2 championships and being the face of the franchise long after LeBron has left. So, I mean, his options are open, and that's a good thing to have these type of options for Anthony Davis to make these type of decisions, because he's one of those players whose game is injury-proof also. He's 7 feet, athletic. He can do so many things with the ball. He can shoot, soft touch, handle the ball. So sky's the limit for this kid. Whether he stays healthy or not, he's still going to get a great deal. So maybe 2 is the way to go.
I like what you're saying, Paul, and I agree. He really has some flexibility. I think lining his contract up with LeBron is a great thing to do. You know, win as much as possible. And then down the line, obviously you could do the 1-and-1s back at home. I know that was talked about. I think Chicago, a couple other teams where he could possibly go back. He could do his 1-and-1s then. But right now, you want to win as much as possible. And he can make a lot of money on a very good team with the chance to win another championship back-to-back possibly. So I think right now, I don't walk away from that opportunity. I mean, I think, you know, at the end of the day, he's going to be a Laker. And that's just, they're just giving all these, you know, just doing, like you said, playing the game a little bit. Yeah, I know I'm signing there. I'll sign later, you know, just for the drama, you know.
What's life without a little bit of drama? And by the way, Paul, I know that you have your number retired in Boston. Right, exactly. I know, Paul, you have your number retired in Boston Garden, but you're clearly always an LA kid if you're saying, what could you possibly want besides playing for the Lakers? I mean, that there's not even a consideration of another team. That's the most LA thing I think I've heard you say in a while. I do want to move on to the Sixers, though. He probably going to live here after basketball anyway. Yes, for sure. I need a house here before he even came to play for the Lakers. I want to move on to the Sixers, guys, because they made trades to acquire Danny Green, Seth Curry on draft night. So, Brian, what is Philly's next move after what they have done to address their shooting concerns? Because they at least opened up some space on the floor here.
Yeah, and by trading Al Horford, they also opened up some room on their books. They were facing pretty significant luxury tax penalties, and the Al Horford trade gave them some airspace, and so they now can, dip their toes into free agency. But of course, that's not what you're asking about. What you're asking about is, are they going to trade for James Harden?
I'm asking about James Harden, friend. Yes.
These trades really don't help improve their asset base for Harden. It's not like the Rockets are like, oh, they have Danny Green. Oh, this is something we're interested in. Most people in the league believe that if they're going to get serious about James Harden, it's going to take putting Ben Simmons into the deal. Now, Daryl Morey has not made any indication at all that he is willing to do that, and he has been very clear as he's talked to the media about how valuable it is to have two young superstars in their prime. But if James Harden wants to go to Brooklyn, the way to trump any Brooklyn offer is to put in a player that Brooklyn can't match. And so that's what we're going to be paying attention to. It could be weeks, it could be months before something like this would happen.
Vince, would you do a deal if you were the Sixers, and would you do a deal that included Ben Simmons to get James Harden with Joel Embiid?
It's just a tough question. It's what are you looking for? What do you want out of your team? And I think for Houston, first of all, let me say they're doing it right. If you're going to let somebody like this go, who's a stars of stars, you better make sure you're going to get something close. Now, if I'm the Sixers, if you could get James Harden, for sure, you're going to do it. And it's just who. I think James Harden and an Embiid would be.
He's played so many times, so regularly, it's basically become like a baseball player stepping into the batter's box. You never want to whip on a pitch, but if you do, there's always another one coming. That is until last season, when he and the Lakers never even made it up to the plate. Last season, when LeBron dealt with the most significant injury of his career, when he started to feel the first real wisps of aging. It's always interesting to watch truly great athletes go through this. I remember talking to Derek Jeter once about he was actually more nervous and grippy playing big games toward the beginning and end of his career than he was actually at the start of his career. That it was a whole different urgency once Father Time forced you to realize you're only going to get so many more innings. So it wasn't a surprise yesterday to hear that before Game 4 between the Lakers and the Heat, LeBron, he texted his team's group chat with 2 words: must win. And he went even further when he talked to the media.
I just felt that. I felt that vibe. I felt that pressure. I felt like for me personally, this was one of the biggest games of my career. And just wanted to relay that message to my teammates, what type of zone I was in, what type of moment it was.
One of the biggest games of my career? That's quite the sentence when you think about, LeBron's career. But it's easy to see why it felt that way. After Game 3, where Jimmy Butler had given injury-ravaged Miami more than a little bit of hope. Game 4 was set as the battle for the heart and soul of these NBA Finals. Bam Adebayo, coming back from his shoulder injury, only heightened things, as did Butler, who came out smoking in the first quarter, going 5 for 5. The Lakers, meanwhile, looked, a bit grippy and sloppy, too. LA had 9 first-half turnovers. LeBron himself had 5 of those. But LA got some nice contributions from their role players, including Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. KCP has not had the easiest go of it over the years from Lakers fans, who think the $38 million the team has paid him over the past 3 years has been excessive. But he has earned every penny over these finals. And Anthony Davis, who had a rough Game 3, he earned his money last night, too. His defense on Butler was stellar. After the first quarter, Jimmy was just 1 for 7 with AD checking him, although it was LeBron who met Jimmy at the rim and was on the other end of that dunk. Ooh. And as you can see there, it turns into a little bit of an Incredible Hulk moment. The whole "don't make me angry, you wouldn't like it when I'm angry" line? Yeah. Watch LeBron's response here after slamming down that basketball. Dude splits the hedge, hits the shot off balance, and got the and one.
Yeah, look at that. Go ahead and flex on him, big fella. He's too big to be splitting screen. Like, you got to be able to close that gap on big fella. But yeah, sometimes, man, when you start to feel that pressure, you got to answer, and that was a huge answer.
Now, the Lakers never trailed after that. LeBron would finish the game with 28 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, and that must-win win. Now, the first, and we know that he tweeted early in the morning.
Yeah.
He didn't sleep after that, right? Because he was still more than 5 hours after the Lakers left the arena. Maybe it was just adrenaline. Maybe he was thinking about Game 5, which actually is a must-win, guys, for Miami.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it might also feel like it for LeBron James. He's 35 years old in a couple months. Even if he still might be in the longest prime in the history of professional sports, health is never guaranteed. Basic math says there are only so many more pitches coming. And if last night is any indication, he certainly has the ability to hit a few more out of the park. Richard, I'm having some problems with my IFB and my elements.
You're doing a
you
great
can tell
job.
that.
You're doing a great job.
It's not good right here on the technical front. What is your biggest takeaway from the Lakers win last night? Because you're sitting next to me, so I can hear you.
Well, the crazy thing is that, I think I texted you. I was like, they look a little nervous, right? They look like there's like a lot of pressure, and when you don't want to make mistakes, but you end up making mistakes, and it mounts. My takeaway from this is every series, and especially NBA Finals, there's a game that you have to win that you're not supposed to. Mm-hmm. We saw it with Anthony Davis hitting that big shot against Denver.
Yep.
We saw it last night where if someone would have told you with 2 minutes ago that the Miami Heat would have won that game, there'd have been no surprise. So the Lakers won a game that literally was 50-50, and that gave them control of the series.
Really, I think it's LeBron's, his will. He's imposed his will in this series like none other. Like, I've watched LeBron throughout his whole career. And the fact now that you see in this series, like, he's not waiting for Anthony Davis to light up or to get going. He's using his will. He's not allowing Miami to make these runs, to gain the momentum. And that's the difference that I've seen in LeBron in these finals compared to what I've seen him in past. Is where he's given up the ball, he's went and stood in the corner. You see very little of LeBron taking off on plays in this NBA Finals.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have an option, right? That's with this team and the way this team especially made up on the offensive end. He doesn't have an opportunity to take a moment. Every single thing, and this is the first time, he hasn't been favored many times in all of these NBA Finals.
Yes.
Combine that with this is his first time up 2-0. It's kind of like everything is there for the taking, the fourth championship, so there's a different experience for him, even a guy that's been in the Finals 10 times.
Well, I think in this series he does have options. I think Anthony Davis is having a heck of a series. I think Kentavious Pope is having a heck of a series. I think all of his supporting cast are having a great series, but I think it's the fact that LeBron has led. He has not followed, and he's forced these players to follow. In past season, LeBron has stood back, and been more of a guy who's facilitated. He's used his will, and I think it's really because Jimmy Butler challenged him. He challenged his manhood, and he felt like that he had the upper hand on LeBron James. LeBron James is 17 years in this league, and he's still playing some of the best basketball that I've seen in any 17, 15, 14, 13-year-old vet that has played in this game.
Yeah.
He is playing like he's still got 5 years left in the tank.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.